Hey everybody, it's Rob Nelson, and you may have noticed that we're trying something new here because over the past year, we've been hosting a live 20-minute Ninja sales meeting on the first Monday of each month. And a number of you have reached out and said, why don't you release these as bonus podcast episodes? So we thought, why not? Let's try it, and here we are. What you're about to hear is Peter Parnegg sharing a message with us live in the Ninja sales meeting today. If you'd like to join us for future meetings, we host them the first Monday of each month at 9 a.m. Mountain Time. Just head over to the Ninja Selling YouTube channel and jump in and join us. And for now, here's Peter's message. I think you'll get a lot out of it, and I hope you enjoy.
Subtle skills, big results.
Welcome to the Ninja Selling Podcast.
Hello, Ninjas. Thank you for joining us today. I'm really excited about the idea of what if we could quickly build a business. My name is Peter Parnegg. Many of you I've met. I've had the pleasure and honor of being with you in an installation. So what day is it today? It's another day in paradise. Paul Simon has a really great line. These are the days of miracle and wonder. And the question is, what are these days? And you know what we know? This game is played and won one day at a time. So what if today we just said today is a day of miracle and wonder? Sometimes I think it's better to even get it down to hours. This hour, this 20 minutes, hopefully will be 20 minutes of miracle and wonder. So you may not know this. Sarah Blakely, she was the founder of Spanx, which you're probably familiar with, but I believe she is still the first American woman who is a self-made billionaire with her business. She's a philanthropist. She's a public speaker. And I saw this quote the other day, and I think it's both topical and revealing about the real estate business. And she says, your business will expose every unhealed part of you. Your abandonment issues show up when your clients leave. Your scarcity mindset shows up in your pricing. Your control issues show up in your inability to delegate. This is it. Entrepreneurship isn't just a career path. It's an involuntary therapy that forces you to confront who you really are. Now, whether you're starting a business or whether you're in real estate, being in a 100% commission business is incredibly vulnerable and revealing. And I thought this was an appropriate way to start our conversation today. It was Dennis Giannetti who distinguished the difference between marketing and relationships. You know, all we talk about in Ninja is relationship creation, nurturing, and building. But I think we confuse the two. So maybe a way to look at this is that marketing creates awareness, but relationships create business. And we know that connection is what creates and nurtures relationships. And most importantly, we know this as well, that flow creates connections. So if you were really to go upstream a little bit, it's flow that creates connections. One way to look at this is that marketing is for property. We need to make people aware of our listings, but relationships are for people. That's a broad generalization, but I think it's useful for the conversation today. Agents often come in to me and say, Peter, I need a marketing campaign. And my answer is, I don't think you need a marketing campaign. I think you need a relationship campaign. So using that as the springboard, let me give you the quote and then we'll have the conversation. In Stuart Emery's great part on mastery, in the first paragraph, I think it's the second sentence that we all read at Ninja, he says that for most of us, it begins with technical excellence in a chosen field on our path to mastery. What's interesting is that sometimes I think we think in broad terms about technical excellence. For example, we think, I've got to be good at writing a purchase agreement or I have to understand the law. But if you've tackled any sport, whether it's pickleball or golf or even yoga, the mastery is in the tiny details. If you start to really try and master a golf swing, you're talking about making a golf face hit a ball with a 1/4 of a degree variance at 95 miles an hour. The metaphor in Ninja, it's often one word that makes the difference in being good and great. And so today we want to tackle this idea of being technically excellent at flow. We know, we've heard it for months, years, decades, that flow creates and generates business. By definition, it is frequency of interaction. We love to use body parts at Ninja. As you know, flow is the oxygen of your business. Your database is your central nervous system. The Ninja 9 is the backbone. Your hot and warm list are your heartbeat. I don't know where we came up with this Grey's Anatomy idea, but it's pretty consistent. And we also know that with flow, it can be face-to-face or phone or text or email, real mail, social media. But the key is frequency and consistency. If we know what works, what keeps us from doing it is the big question. And we've seen this slide in Ninja. What holds us back from doing most things that we know will work, but we still don't do them? And that's generally fear. And we also know that there are really only two emotions, fear and love. What is fear? Fear can be defined as the absence of love. And we keep saying, if you just think about loving on your people, then you won't be afraid. If you're fearful, you're thinking about yourself. But for some reason, that isn't enough of a motivation to make us step over that fear. And so what if you're a person who's going, well, that's all good and well, but I just never get around to live flow. I know I'm supposed to do it. You feel like you should do it, but you don't. I believe that many real estate agents walk around in a perpetual state of low-level guilt about the people they know they should call, but they don't. And so Friday afternoon comes and you go, I know I should have called that person. And then you make an excuse like, well, I'm not naturally outgoing. And you just can't bring yourself to call someone you haven't talked to, even though you know you should. And you say to yourself, I just feel salesy, or it's just awkward. And what if they think I'm being salesy? And so we don't do it in spite of the fact that we know that it's successful and appropriate. Albert Einstein said it perfectly when we learned about the law of precession, that nothing happens until something moves. In other words, we have to put our bodies in motion for something to happen. What happens is a pressure develops that exacerbates our guilt. I'm not doing it, and I know I should. So today, let's figure out how to crack the code if you're one of the people that know you should and still don't, in spite of all the evidence that it's successful and it works. To remind us, in the American population, let's talk through this. There are certain personality types for which this is easier and certain for which it is not. Power people only make up about 15 or 20% of the population. They're generally the outgoing person that can work the room along with party people. But if you do the math, less than half of the people are party and power people. In other words, it's easier for them, which means the majority of the population, this kind of stuff is uncomfortable. If you're a peace person, picking up the phone and calling somebody you haven't talked to in 10 months really creates a lot of anxiety and a lot of resistance. If you're a perfection person, you might do it because the data says you should, but it doesn't come naturally to you. So if you're a person who is struggling with this idea, even though you know that you should, you're struggling with the idea of expanding your Ford calls today might help you. One of the things we do at Ninja, both to assure ourselves of our proof of our strategy, we look for proof of concept. In other words, what's working? And what we have noticed when we look at the realtor population, that the top 5% performers, producers, generally are really good at face-to-face and voice-to-voice conversations. They know how to do it. They've overcome or at least addressed their fears. And what we know that means is that the other 95% are avoiding live conversations. In other words, they're trying to create and nurture relationships online, etc., but they never get to the Ford part. They never get to the connecting live part. So as I was preparing for this, I said, I wonder what AI says about this. So the prompt that I put in, and I put it into chat, was 5 introvert-friendly strategies for nurturing real estate clients. This is what I got back from chat. And it said, I'm going to just call it straight out of chat, which you're going to discover in a second is really straight out of Ninja. But check this out. First, lead with expertise, not small talk. Create a simple follow-up system. This is literally from that prompt, as I said. Number 3, personalize quietly but meaningfully. Number 4, use written communication as your edge. And then number 5, be proactive during quiet moments and checking in when there's nothing urgent. So as I looked at this, I said, wait a second. This is straight out of Ninja. And what is leading with expertise but not small talk? Be the source of information, as we say, so that you create top of mind, and then communicate using Ford, which is relationship, not fluff. Number 2, create a simple follow-up system. How about that? Success habit number 8 and the Ninja Planner. Number 3, personalize quietly but meaningfully. harvest fun facts. We've been talking about this for years. Number 4, use written communication as your edge. 2 personal notes. Oh, that's pretty straightforward. And then be proactive during quiet moments, checking in when there's nothing urgent. 2 real estate reviews. I thought, isn't that interesting? Ninja, designed and created by Larry Kendall, who, in spite of how you perceive him, he's a peace person. He's introverted. And so, of course, he developed the brilliant system for introverts to nurture clients. So I thought, man, isn't this perfect? If you think about it, in our case, artificial intelligence is really suggesting emotional intelligence, because the beauty of Ninja, it isn't salesy. It's authentic. The number one call to action is just be yourself. The most valuable gift you have to offer is yourself, which is really being emotionally intelligent. So how can we do that? What is the awkward call? Let's do some numbers. Let's assume that you have a database. Let's assume, just for the fun of conversation, you have 150 people on your database. You talk to 20 of those people regularly. You're in flow with them both live. You're sending your stuff. But that means that you feel comfortable with those 20, but it's the 130, if you do the math, that we're going to call ghosts. They're people who are on your database, but you have effectively ghosted them by not doing live flow. So what do we do about those people? The gold is in the ghosts. That's where the magic will happen, where the awkward call becomes the golden call. And so how do we learn to make the awkward call not awkwardly? We know that forward calls are great, but if you've been feeling guilty, knowing you should but can't pick up the phone, start with a lower risk beginning. Remember, in Ninja, we talk about low risk questions and high risk questions, low risk closes and high risk. Why don't we start with a low risk approach? The goal will always be to end up either face to face or voice to voice. But maybe we can get there in a way that even if you're anxious, you can overcome that. So I want to go through 6 quick ways about how to reach out to somebody before you end up in a forward call. And then if you do and when, how do you do that? And the 6 ways, let's start with texting. I want to go through each of these. Video texting is the next piece. We used to be pretty adamant when we were teaching Ninja that you had to write 2 personal notes. But it is pretty evident that the world responds positively to texting. And we have added to our success habit number 3, which is, of course, to write 2 personal notes a day or consider 10 personal texts. I would like to say we've sanctioned the text, but there's a step 2 in this now, and it's video texts. It's not new, but I want to show you the nuances for that. Number 3, I want to show you how you can use your CRM and individualized emails to create connection that will then create a response, which will then give you permission to go live. Number 4, of course, how do you use the direct messaging on social? Number 5, I want to make a comment about LinkedIn because I think this is a golden opportunity. And then 6, I want to review 4 in a package. I want to give you an example of what a video text. This happened to me this week. Somebody I have not talked to in about 5 months sent me a really lovely video text, and I registered my emotion to that, and it felt really great. I want to underscore one of the brilliant things that Larry Kendall did when he created Ninja is he gave us permission to be fully authentic. In the sales business, I hear this all the time. Oh, it'll give you an excuse to call somebody or a reason to call somebody. What if we didn't need an excuse other than they just crossed my mind? And I would bet pretty much the farm that everybody has the experience of driving around and somebody crosses your mind. You pull up to an intersection. It reminds you of this. You drive into a neighborhood and you go, oh yeah, one of my friends lives here. All the time when people are crossing our mind, our call to action is every time that happens, take action immediately. And this is what it could sound like. Let's say I happen to have filmed this in my house, but I'm in my car. I've just driven into a neighborhood. I'm looking at a house to show somebody, and they go, oh, this is where my friend Larry lives. Try this out for size.
Hey, Larry, this is Peter Parnegg. You've been crossing my mind a lot lately. I don't think we've talked in about a year, but every time I think of you, I'm going, man, I sure enjoy Larry. So I'm just sending you a message today, check in on you. How's your family? How's work? I'd love to talk to you. No need to call back if you don't want, but just know that Every time I think of you, you make me smile, and I hope you're doing really well. Take care.
It doesn't have to be polished. It doesn't have to be professional, but what it really has to be is sincere. And one of the things that I learned from the Peyton Manning video from the installation is if I can find a compliment to pay somebody, it makes it better. Now, here's the key. 50, 70, 80, 90% of people will respond to that somehow. I don't know about you, but that didn't feel very salesy or pushy to me. But here's the key. When they respond, don't keep texting, go live. When they respond back, pick up the phone at the moment and say, hey, thank you for responding. This is so great. It will take the awkwardness out of the call because you've already had a response. Here's number 2. Hopefully in your CRM, you've figured out how to send an email to all 150 of the people in your database. You have a tag or some sort of a group. But this is what it would read like. Happy Monday, Rob. I had a great time at a concert on Friday night, and it made me think of you. We went to see the Vitamin String Quartet in Denver, and the show was magical. They're the original composers and performers of the music from Bridgerton, and they only play contemporary pop hits from major artists like Coldplay, Taylor Swift, Billie Eilish as a string quartet. It was really spectacular, and they're performing again on Wednesday. I thought if you were looking for a really fun, spontaneous date night out, you might enjoy this immensely. Here's a link for tickets. I hope you all are well. In other words, when you have something that you think somebody might enjoy, send an email to all 150 people with the link. 90 won't respond to it, but 10 or 15 will respond. And when they do, whether it's email, that gives you another opportunity to pick up the phone because you've already had the first interaction digitally, but it gives you an opportunity. Here's a third one. LinkedIn, by definition, is a sanctioned business-to-business opportunity for connection. In other words, there's nothing weird on LinkedIn about connecting with somebody because everybody on LinkedIn is in a business environment. Interestingly, another opportunity, make sure to respond offline. If you aren't on LinkedIn, go in, and then you start liking people. But here's what happens, and here's where I think the magic is. If you are on LinkedIn, every one of us has had the opportunity where it says, congratulate Diana on 19 years at the group. Instead of having the stock answer, just pick up the phone and call Diana and say, I noticed that. Now, the last one, when you do get to talk to somebody, is forward in a package. To remind you, the way we are taught this is to go, hi, how's your family? What's new at work? And we go sequentially through them. But let's say you call somebody that you haven't talked to in a year, and maybe they don't even know you're in real estate. But the forward in a package puts all 4 in one sentence. I had a top producer the other day go, this was one of the best things you've ever shared with. We've been sharing this at Ninja for quite a while, but I want to review it quickly in our last couple of minutes here. The idea here is I'm going to call, it's a good friend of mine. I was in the banking business with my good friend Rob a year ago. I left. I'm in the real estate business, and it's going to sound like this. Ring, Rob. Rob, you may not remember me. My name's Peter Parnegg. We used to work together at First Bank. And he goes, oh, yeah, great. Now, here's the key phrase. Rob, catch me up. How's your family? What are you doing at work? Are you still at First Bank? What are you doing for work? What have you been doing for fun? Have you made any big plans for 2026? Why is this magic? Imagine if Rob or whoever you call was going through something difficult with their family. If your opening question is, how's your family? That immediately, accidentally could make the phone call awkward and the person fumbles. When you give them the forward in a package, you have, in fact, given them the menu to pick the one they want. And they may go, oh my gosh, we're just going to leave on a cruise next week. And whatever excites them will come forward. The technical excellence here is in the essential ingredient of catch me up. Don't say, how are things going? How are you doing? How's your family? But catch me up sends a message like I'm interested in your life and the whole thing. So forward in a package is the last one. So to recap, there are 6 low-risk ways to reach out. And my suggestion is try 1 or 2 of these today. No time like the present. If you think of somebody and you go, I've felt a little awkward about picking up the phone, but I could send a video text. Try 2 this morning and see what happens. You might want to send one to yourself, record it and go, ooh, that wasn't very good. The cool thing about it is it doesn't take film. You can delete it, practice it a couple, and try a couple of them. And then, if you really wanted to get crazy, practice forward and package to yourself. So, thank you for joining us, because remember, the gold is in the ghosts. Pick somebody you haven't talked to in at least 90 days to 180 and try one of these techniques, because remember, the gold is in the ghosts. I want to close with this. Let's say you need a little bit of help, something that you still think, okay, fine, but I would be better in a community of people that are doing it. Let me invite you to an opportunity and an offering we have at Ninja. It's called Ninja 90. And it is an idea to jumpstart your business if you're close, but this is really designed to help you nurture and create relationships through conversations. It will also help you organize your database to easily track and take action. And the way it's structured, it's 12 one-hour weekly virtual calls to get the systems up and running. But here's the key. There will be 40 to 50 other ninjas around the country. It's a fantastic opportunity to network, create relationships, which then just might end up in some referrals. So there's a QR code here. You can go to ninjaselling.com and look up under classes. But if you're really wanting to make 2026 a spectacular year, join a Ninja 90 group. One starts on March 23rd. Perfect spring activity to have a fantastic summer. Thank you for joining us today on the Ninja Selling Sales Meeting of the Month.
If you enjoyed this episode, visit us at theninjasellingpodcast.com to learn more about ninja selling classes and coaching to get you started or further your journey on the ninja path.
Thank you for joining us. Now go have an incredible day.